With the decision of the High Command Council to send the battle fortress back into space, along with the 70,000 citizens of Macross City aboard, Captain Global and First Officer Lisa Hayes know they have a difficult task ahead of them in how to break it to the crew. Rick Hunter is facing challenges of his own, as he has to somehow smooth over the fact that he's added one more civilian to the SDF-1's manifest of refugees by bringing back Minmay's cousin, LYNN KYLE. As they make it back to the restaurant owned by Minmay's Aunt Lena, she is absolutely beside herself to see her son. Filled with pure joy and disbelief that he's come home, the emotions spill over to Minmay, and even Rick can't help but feel it a little. You get the impression that when Kyle left home, it was with many ill feelings, especially when you see the reaction Uncle Max greets him with, but Kyle is understanding. However, at least in private, Uncle Max is also overcome with happiness that his son has returned home to him. Still, if even the happy-go-lucky Uncle Max has this reaction upon seeing his own son, it certainly feels like a clue that LYNN KYLE is a difficult person, to say the least. At another dining establishment, Rico, Conda, and Braun peruse the display in the glass case out front, smelling something tasty here and starving, having ran out of their own food supply recently. They found the Micronian ritual of currency and commerce painfully confusing, so they figured they'd have to grab something and run for it. Smashing the glass alerts the proprietor, who looked every bit a warrior wielding her ladle. As Braun and Conda prepare to either fight or flee, Rico grabs what he can, but spits it out.
Hey, that's not food. What's the idea? Don't you know the difference between real food and plastic? If you try to eat that, you really must be hungry. Come on inside and I'll fix you something to eat. And I mean real food.
Oh.
Hey, wait for us!
There was something about this invitation, this act of kindness, that these Zentraedi spies, warriors in their own right, found stirring. This empathy certainly wouldn't have been shown or tolerated in the ranks of their fleet. Whatever the case, they rush in to enjoy more fine Micronian cuisine. On the bridge, Captain Global had the courtesy to tell his most loyal allies among his crew the news before anyone else. And honestly, they weren't taking it well.
That's not fair! It's like we're prisoners here.
Wait, orders are orders, even if there are a lot of idiots in central headquarters who have no idea of what they're doing.
But something must be done. Sir, you're not going to accept this quietly. You will change their minds, won't you? Well, Captain?
This really isn't helping me, so get back to your duty stations immediately. I do appreciate your concern, but right now I have to break the news to the survivors.
But
Excuse me.
can't you...
That will be all, Vanessa.
Yes, sir.
Try to understand.
But it's not fair.
That's absolutely true, but you can't blame the captain for something that headquarters did.
You're saying the captain needs our support now? Is that it?
Yes, he does.
All this talk isn't going to change anything, and I'm hungry. Let's all go into town and eat lunch.
Yeah, let's go and eat. I'm starving.
Kim is probably the most practical one of this trio, knowing that some comfort food can solve nearly any problem. Somewhere along the way, the bridge officers picked up Max Sterling by some unseen happenstance, and why wouldn't he want to join this bunch for lunch? The White Dragon was packed, but it seemed Rick had a table all to himself and happily waves over his fellow officers to join him. Rick fills them in on why the whole neighborhood is here, it being a big reunion for the return of this prodigal son. All the bridge girls are smitten by Kyle's good looks, but they hit Lisa the hardest, mostly because his face and demeanor strike her as being like her deceased fiancé, Carl Reber. Rick grows annoyed at how much all the girls go on about this good-looking newcomer as they take their seats. When Tommy Lewin comes over to greet Rick, Kyle is close behind, politely eager to introduce himself to the mayor of Macross City, as well as Rick's compatriots, all of whom practically swoon at Kyle's voice, while Rick barely hides a grimace. The mayor slyly comments how even Kyle must admit that there are some lovely ladies in the service, even if Kyle dislikes the military, cleverly informing Rick's friends exactly what they may be getting into with this guy. He then excuses himself to see how this all plays out from a distance. I get the feeling the mayor reads exactly what kind of guy Kyle is, and he isn't a fan. Sammy kindly invites Kyle to explain further what the mayor was implying, and Kyle self-assuredly speaks of not liking fighting of any kind, believing it only causes destruction all around. But the way he talks about it almost implies that they only join the military because they enjoy destroying everything. And this does not go over well with Max Sterling, who calls Kyle out on his stance. Rick assures them all he certainly didn't sign up because he just loves blowing stuff up. He did so to defend those who can't defend themselves, and to protect the people he loves. He receives agreement from all others at the table, who now seem disillusioned by whatever attractiveness they initially found in LYNN KYLE. Yet Lisa remains oddly silent. Minmay is aware enough to see this is going badly, and in an effort to keep things smooth, she asks a patron to turn on the TV, knowing a special she'd recorded some days ago was airing. But just as Minmay's music starts cooling the mood and bringing the party back, her special is interrupted by some breaking news. That alone is enough to upset Minmay's many fans in the restaurant, but the announcement that follows is devastating. It seems someone has leaked to the press about the military refusing to let the civilians leave the ship, and though they hope it's temporary, for now it is indefinite. This greatly upsets all the civilians in the room, even little Jason and his mother. Kim and Sammy are also upset, knowing this was not the way to inform the city, unless they wanted an all-out rebellion on board. And it was quickly turning into one. Frustration and anger led to tempers and outbursts, as the civilians quickly started blaming the officers in the room. Rick didn't know how to respond, but Lisa was having none of it, reminding the people how the military risk their own lives every day to protect them. But the list of grievances mount from the one patron, and though the bridge crew empathize with them a great deal, Lisa knows it's time to leave. One customer grabs her arm, demanding answers, and Max Sterling demands this fella take his hands off Lisa. The customer answers with a fist, which Max dodges and answers back. The dude falls like a rock, but the damage is done, the fire is lit, and it all quickly flies out of control. Rick and Max show that Veritech pilots are still well trained in hand-to-hand combat, easily taking out their fair share of ruffians. It all spills over toward Kyle, who, although he's a pacifist, decides he can't abide this behavior in his family's restaurant. Things continue to escalate as the very neighbors who came to welcome him turn on Kyle, which alarms Lisa, but Kyle calmly and coolly goes full Bruce Lee on his assailants, having no problem in dispatching every challenger, even as Rick and Max find the mob is taking their toll on them. Kyle expertly flies around his opponents until everyone who was riled up are now down on the ground. Rick and Max try to catch their breath and nurse their own wounds, but it's Kyle that Minmay runs to in concern, the only one still standing, looking completely unharmed. Rick just can't believe it, and even Max is kind of upset for his buddy. Max's intuition goes beyond his amazing piloting skills, and he zeroes in on exactly what kind of guy LYNN KYLE is.
Hey, you're a pretty well-trained fighter for someone who doesn't like to fight.
It was just something that had to be done, I guess. I'm sorry.
Are you all right? Oh. You're bleeding.
Huh?
Here, maybe this handkerchief will help, okay?
Oh, don't bother. I really don't want help from any of you people, but thanks anyway.
I see.
That's right. Kyle doesn't really like servicemen. Let me help.
It's a bit of a catty moment between Lisa and Minmay as Minmay's possessiveness peeks through, but even Lisa is surprised at her own desire to help Kyle, and just how hurt she is by his rejection. As Rick and Max see how blatantly Minmay is doting on Kyle, they just can't believe this guy is for real. In Earth's orbit, AZONIA's fleet stands by, waiting eagerly for the spies on the battle fortress to finish their work and return. But KHYRON is out of patience and launches the front end of his personal attack cruiser out on his own unsanctioned mission. AZONIA is informed of this and is rather upset by it, but also feels some bit of respect at his initiative, not really blaming him for his desire to end this waiting game they play. As KHYRON's attack ship blazes through the atmosphere, it is immediately detected by the relief crew on the SDF-1's bridge, who inform Captain Gloval. The captain orders Lisa and the others to return to the bridge and takes this as an opportunity to radio Earth Defense for support and see what they're willing to offer as the Zentraedi attack the battle fortress. The Earth Defense Command does indeed detect KHYRON's ship, but their offer of support is rather flaccid. They launch a salvo of missiles with conventional warheads at the incoming Zentraedi vessel, just enough to show Gloval some support, but not enough to attract the enemy's attention. Kim informs the captain of the missiles launched, and Captain Gloval reads that message as it is from High Command, knowing they're hanging him and the SDF-1 out to dry. They are on their own. Claudia notices Lisa having trouble concentrating, teasing her that maybe she can't get that new guy at the restaurant out of her head. Indeed, Lisa is distracted by a great internal struggle emerging within her. The missiles hit KHYRON's ship and do nothing. As Grell proposes a counterattack, KHYRON reveals he cares nothing for this planet or its puny inhabitants. He has but one goal: to destroy the Micronian battle fortress. The alert wing of veritech fighters meet KHYRON's ship in the sky, and he launches his own attack wave back at them. Continuing on to the SDF-1, dropping battle pods right on top of it. KHYRON's attack is so heavy it decimates the initial wave of fighters sent at him, and KHYRON himself descends to personally oversee this attack, knowing he only has so much time before AZONIA interferes. As he takes position on the Prometheus, the captain specifically orders Vermilion Squad to its deck at once, knowing Rick Hunter and Max Sterling were two of his best, and Ben Dixon was no slouch either at this point. Rick heads into battle once more, but even as he goes over his battle orders from Lisa, he notes how overwhelming the enemy forces are this time. Then Lisa gets hit with an overwhelming concern in that moment, finding herself, in that instant, struck with immense concern for the safety of Rick Hunter. A battalion of Spartan-class destroids bravely defend the Prometheus and give as good as they get, but KHYRON's forces don't let up for a minute. Rick and his team have no end of choices for targets, as Lisa tries to effectively coordinate where they're needed most. And KHYRON makes progress nearer the main part of the ship, but finds himself interrupted by a legion of Quadrano power armors sent from AZONIA, led by none other than the fierce MIRIYA Perino.
The purpose of your operation is to thwart KHYRON's plan. Therefore, do not fire at the enemy.
So, don't fire at the enemy, huh? Well, it seems as though my radio is broken or something. I love it when a good plan works out well.
KHYRON, come in immediately. Can you hear me? You are in violation of your orders. Therefore, stop this attack at once.
Violation of my orders? But I haven't done anything to these miserable Micronians. At least, not yet. In the centuries to come, if any of them are left alive, they will speak with terror the name KHYRON.
Don't joke with me. Turn back.
All right, men. Cease firing. We're heading back.
Excuse me, sir, would you please repeat that? We're going back already?
Yes, I've just received a direct order from Commander AZONIA. But don't forget to get your souvenir, my friend.
My souvenir? Why, no, sir, I certainly won't forget that.
Even as transport ships are dropped to hasten KHYRON's evacuation, many of his troops begin the process, but the battle is still raging in all quadrants around the ship. Then KHYRON's own attack ship rises out of the water, but not in retreat. It moves to engage with the SDF-1 directly. Vanessa alerts the captain, and knowing there wouldn't be time to clear their fighters out of the way of the main gun, he instead has Lisa prepare her patented dataless attack maneuver to destroy the ship once it's in range. The battle is intense for Rick and his team, especially with this new group of green armored fighters that have joined the fray. Despite being knocked down by one of them, Max and Ben assure Rick they're A-OK, and Rick has them regroup as he leads them in a counterattack. They cut a swath through the Zentraedi, and even KHYRON takes note, recognizing these fighters from a previous encounter. Rick is locked into the green armored Zentraedi from before, determined to end it and not let it get the jump on him or the others again. MIRIYA, inside the armor, allows Rick to chase her, daring him to catch her. As KHYRON's ship prepares its kamikaze run at the SDF-1, taking everything they desperately throw at it, Claudia coordinates the distance and timing for the dataless attack, ready to tell Lisa when to strike. Lisa's internal battle continues to distract her just enough that she misses the moment to engage the attack. She still initializes it, but the trajectory is off, and although the mighty dataless still bashes its way through the Zentraedi cruiser as if it was nothing, the end of it punches through the top dorsal section, right near where MIRIYA and Rick engage. The missiles, meant to fire inside of the ship, pour around the outside of it in a swarm that surrounds Rick Hunter. Even skilled as he is, he catches a missile on his tail. And to make matters worse, MIRIYA faints, allowing Rick to come around under her, and she blows his veritech out of the sky. Rick's auto-eject, the only thing saving him from this deadly attack. The ship is still obliterated as the missiles find their targets, and the SDF-1 pulls away as it detonates. Claudia announces the success of the operation despite its snafus. As KHYRON moves through the water to his transport, he curses the Micronians for destroying his ship and evading destruction once again, all while AZONIA mocks KHYRON in his failure. The Zentraedi continue their retreat, but the captain orders his forces to stand down and not pursue. Lisa quietly holds in her shame, frustration, and sadness, even as Global stands up to leave the bridge. Still, he can tell something's wrong and commends her on a job well done. She thanks him in a trembling voice, barely holding back tears, and Claudia notices, gravely concerned for her friend. As Lisa sits in her own quarters, the words of LYNN KYLE and his anti-war sentiments roll over in her head again and again, resurfacing many long-buried sentiments of her own, sparked by her fiancé Carl long ago. Sentiments she'd buried, imprisoned deep within her, underneath convictions of her own military service and dedication to the armed forces, her father, and his beliefs. The fact that Kyle somewhat looked like Carl Reber wasn't helping her gain control of this confusion. But what was even more confusing was how much she was worried about Rick Hunter. She'd heard his transmission over the radio.
Lisa, this is Rick. I'm in direct line of our missiles.
She knew he was still alive and had ejected, but was also in critical condition. And not only did she feel responsible, knowing it was her own mistake and distraction that put him there, she found herself caring for him, almost desperate to see him pull through. She'd had no idea just how much she'd cared for him until this moment.
let him die.
Roger, 299er. I have shoot in sight, but there is no movement. Repeat, no movement. Oh, there he is. I see him now. We're going in for a pickup.
Rick was in bad shape and rushed to the finest medical facility, which happened to be in Macross City. As they wheeled him into the operating room, there was no way to know if he would make it through the night.